It's been 4 days since I've covered the last part of this story, and suffice to say, it probably needs a new part.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
We pick our story off immediately where we had left off in the last part. Izuku would be passed out in his bed and his other video would be playing in the background, and all we would hear would be, Izuku! Izuku, it's time for school! Deku would be like, oh my god, I overslept. He would quickly rush to the bathroom as he would brush his teeth, take a quick shower, throw his clothes on, and leave without eating any breakfast. Matter of fact, let me change that. He does get breakfast, but it's like a piece of toast. And then there was like this huge banquet on the table. Yep, had to do it to my mans. Anyways though, hold on, quick segment in the video. Why do movie characters always do that? Like, they have this giant banquet in front of them and they'll like grab a piece of toast and drink some orange juice and be like, gotta go, mom. You know what I mean? Like, who does that? Like, I'm getting to school late, me personally, if there's that much breakfast in front of me. Like, my education comes second when it comes to food. But no. I need to get back on track. Anyways, so like I was saying, he would end up pretty much rushing to school and he would use his abilities to teleport immediately there. He would arrive about like with 20 seconds to spare, and when he would walk in the classroom, Aizawa would ask him why he's in such a rush. Deku would say he overslept a little bit, and he would say, interesting. As from here, they would get into the classroom, and they would all be told that they have about 3 days to get ready for this forest training arc. And everybody would be pretty excited for this. They would be told that everybody is going to be going to this, and they would be informed that the people who failed their finals are going to be having remedial courses, so they're going to be doing extra schoolwork. They would kind of sigh at this, being like, oh, come on, why do we have to do that? But alas, Aizawa would be like, yeah, I don't want to hear it. It's your fault you failed. You should have studied. You should have tried harder when you were facing the teachers. They would all be like, all right. And eventually everybody would end up getting their stuff situated for the trip. On one of those days, All Might would have actually talked to Izuku regarding One for All and how he believes Deku could be the one to end it all. He also would actually end up introducing Deku to Mirio, since All Might would not just be alone in the room, giving away the secret of One for All. He would also have Mirio in on it too, because, it's his successor and he feels like his successor should know these things. So Mirio and All Might would both tell Deku this, and Deku would be pretty happy. He would ask Mirio if he's powerful himself, and Mirio would pretty much be like, oh, I'm pretty powerful myself as well. Deku would say, then why doesn't he do it? And All Might would then say, because Mirio's still not strong enough to defeat me when it comes to brute force, but you? Izuku, you obliterated me. You caused me to go back to this form. He would turn into Small Might before coughing out tons of blood, and Deku would be like, yo, what is that? As All Might would be like, it's my injury. He would then proceed to tell Deku that, not gonna lie, he kind of like made his time lessen by like 30 minutes because of that insane attack, and that it definitely left a scratch on All Might. He would then proceed to say he's sorry, and then from here, Izuku would actually ask Mirio if he could spar with him. He wants to see just how powerful the symbol of peace's successor is. And so from here, Mirio would actually smile before proceeding to give Deku a run for his money. And Deku would be pretty happy because he finally would have ended up finding somebody kind of like a rival. See, the thing with Mirio is he most likely, with the body type that he has, is more than strong enough for at least, let's say, 40% One for All. My man Mirio is pretty strong looking, and he does have a pretty strong buff body. So I think 40% is more than generous, and with 40% comes having a couple of extra quirks that One for All gives him. So I definitely think he would have things such as what's it called, Black Whip. I think that's what it called, like Dark Whip or something like that. He would also have Danger Sense, and he would also have the abilities of Float. So Mirio is pretty stacked, not gonna lie. Not only that, but his ability of intangibility would have been heightened by the powers of One for All, and Mirio can actually turn intangible without falling into the ground. Think Kamui, except his body doesn't go into another dimension and it just kind of becomes not solid. Like things can go through him. So they would start in the gym. And immediately Deku would think that, he's going to try a little bit. So he would shoot a laser beam at Mirio's direction just to see what Mirio would do. And Mirio would stand right in front of the beam as it's coming right at his direction, coming at super speeds as Mirio just phases and the laser beam just goes straight through him. Deku, seeing this, would think, my attack, it didn't pierce him. Before then looking at Mirio and asking if he went intangible just now. Mirio would say that he did, before rushing in by going straight into the ground and then hopping back up with an uppercut for Deku. However, he would go straight through him, and Deku would just look at him thinking to himself that he also can do the same thing. Mirio would smile, before then using his black whip tendrils to shoot them at Deku's direction. But Deku, however, would use his light reflection to pretty much blast off of the walls over and over at speeds Mirio was not even able to comprehend, before he came in flying with a kick and barely would end up dodging. Mirio would barely end up dodging because of his danger sensibility, and barely end up phasing through the attack that Deku just shot at him. So Deku's attack wouldn't connect, and Mirio would actually have a little bit of a drop of sweat falling down his face, thinking to himself that he hasn't had to try this hard against an opponent other than All Might. Deku would then begin rushing at him, and at this point he would begin using his darkness ability to open a portal of his darkness and shoot out a bunch of trash that he sucked into it over the years. It would shoot out and Mirio would just phase through it before rushing at Deku's direction and throwing a punch, but the punch wouldn't do a thing. And Mirio would quickly come to find out that there's literally nothing he could do to touch Deku. His attacks are physical, and as we know, Logia types can't have damage. So yeah, my man just goes straight through him and no damage is done. However, Deku decides that it's about time that he shows Mirio one of his trump cards. He would pretty much proceed to grab onto Mirio before he could phase, and while holding him with his darkness side, he would actually begin sapping the power away from Mirio, and Mirio would not be able to use his quirks. So when Mirio was stuck in Deku's hands, he would be like, what? As, he's pretty much getting choked in the air by Deku, who is pretty much telling him to phase out of it. But Mirio would say that he can't. And it's this moment where Deku would find out that his darkness side is actually able to have a little bit of nullification to quirks. It's strange, but it just works that way. And so Deku would actually end up beginning to sap some of Mirio's strength away with his darkness, as Mirio would fall down onto his knees and say that those abilities of his are very, very special. Deku would look at Mirio and smile, saying to him that, he tries. And from here, Mirio would just kind of nod, as Deku would nod towards him, and he would then look towards All Might before saying that his successor is definitely something special, that he wasn't even able to try that hard against him. All Might would kind of blush a little bit, thinking to himself that, yeah, my bad. Well, not blush, but kind of have like a red face, because, he just feels bad at the fact that Mirio's already pretty much stronger and smarter than him in battle. But nonetheless, everybody would eventually try to, Everybody would eventually try to, get on the bus, I guess you could say, because, the Force Training arc, that stuff does exist. So, yeah. Everybody would be on the bus, and seeing as Deku literally just is fresh off of defeating All Might, easily, he's pretty much been the center of attention for the past couple of days, with everybody trying to talk to Deku. Now, this would be especially true on the bus, because Mina would have been the first one to get on the bus, and she would have rushed to the back seat with Deku, sitting right next to him, and kind of trying to get closer and closer, pretty much giving Deku no space to breathe. I mean, Deku's not against this. So he kind of just lets it happen, and he and Mina would pretty much just be in the back seat, talking. Everybody would be trying to talk to Deku, and people would be leaning over the seats in front of Deku to try to talk to him, such as Uraraka, who would be a little bit jealous, and a couple others. As soon as they do end up arriving towards the location where they get thrown off of the mountain from, they would all end up being like, yo, how come the camp is so far? And Deku would know the answers to this. But it would be very, very shortly that one of the Wild Pussycats team members would end up throwing them off, and eventually everybody would get knocked off onto the ground. they would be like, what was that about? And from top, they would hear Aizawa telling them that they have exactly 4 hours to make it back, and that if they don't, they're going to be spending the night in the forest. And so everybody at this point would be like, that's not good. But from here, a bunch of monsters would come in, and he would say, oh yeah, and you're going to be fighting monsters. And Deku, upon seeing a monster come at his direction, would literally shoot a gigantic tornado of darkness into the air, which would suck it in and just legit keep it there, like the monster's dead now. And from here, Deku would simply remain at the front of the group as he would just destroy each and every single one of the monsters. You know, Todoroki would jump in and kill a couple, Bakugo would do the same, Kirishima would, you know, protect some of their classmates. But it would be a whole lot easier for them to get through it, and it would eventually take them about 3 hours just because they're going at like decent pace. You know, they're not running there, they're kind of just taking their time this time, so it'd take them about 3.5 hours. That said, once they do eventually end up clearing that spot, Aizawa and the Wild Pussycats would be extremely shocked at this, because it would have taken them at least like, you know, 3 hours to complete at the same time that it took them. And you know, they're just shocked at how easy they were able to go through with it. But they would kind of just show signs of like not being tired, but they would kind of just fake it. And Aizawa would say that Izuku helped a lot, didn't he? Everybody would kind of be like, nah, no, he didn't. And you know, Deku would say he didn't at all. And Aizawa would say, good, well, everybody but Izuku, I guess now can go and fight against each other for another 2 hours. Everybody would be like, ah, come on. But you know, what are they gonna do? They have to do what Aizawa says. While Deku was eating his curry bowl that one of the members of the Wild Pussycats would have cooked up for him, she would end up sitting next to him and asking him what his quirk is. Deku would explain it, and she would be very, very surprised by this, before then saying that, you know, does he have a girlfriend? Like, is he ready to mate yet? And Deku would be like, what? As he would spit his food out, and Aizawa would say, don't pay any mind to her. And she would say, I'm serious, he's kind of cute, give it like 3 years and you know, he's mine for the taking. Deku would start laughing to himself before he then politely just says that, you know, he is a little underage right now, but eventually after, she could give him a call. Aizawa would look at Deku's direction before thinking, that boy right there, that boy, he got it like that. And Deku would just have like the thug glasses on his face as he's like the little thug life music would pop up, and I don't need to explain. Anyways, though, following this, what would end up happening is the very, very casual forest training would happen. Everybody starts training with their own different things. Bakugo's doing his little sweat explosion. Todoroki's just doing ice and fire over and over. Deku's already trained with his quirk for his entire life and pretty much has full mastery over it, so there's not really much that he can't learn. But when Class B arrives, they would actually end up saying that, you know, Class 1B is so much more superior to Class A, and the only reason that they're good is because of Deku, who's not even that powerful. Deku, after hearing that, would end up challenging the entire class and telling them that if they could land even one hit on him, that, you know, he'll personally be resigning from the hero program. They would be very, very happy at this, and they would all go in to rush at Deku, being like, now we can get, you know, the future #1 hero out of the limelight. He'll have to go to another school, and that will, you know, boost us up. But they can't touch him. That's the messed up part. They had no hope from the beginning to even touch Deku, because the man is a Logia type. He is made out of like literal light. So yeah, and they don't have hockey, so you know, they're kind of screwed. Quick question though, would you guys be interested in a What If Naruto with Hockey series? I saw Rogue X's take on it and I thought it was pretty interesting, but I've wanted to do my own take on it for a while, and I was just wondering what you guys would like to see. I would do Izuku, but Izukage already did that, and I don't want people to be like, oh my god, you're copying Izukage! Seeing as there's not really too many ways to do that series. So yeah. That being said though, what should I do? Let me think. So he defeated everybody, you know, they're doing their force training. I'm just kind of going to be skipping ahead to the day where they're in the hot tub and Mineta tries to climb the wall. That stays the same. Deku still ends up being the one to catch Koda after he falls off the top. And from here, he finds out that, you know, my man Koda low-key had a tragic anime backstory. So Deku would sympathize with Koda and just, you know, kind of like give him a little bit of a slack on the things that he be doing. So eventually the day would happen where they're having the hide and seek stuff go down, and the villains would actually begin to be planning the takedown of All Might, seeing as they think he's there. Not only that, but they're also tasked with the destruction of Izuku Midoriya, one of the biggest targets to the League of Villains. That said, the events that would follow after this are very, very simple. What would end up happening is Deku would still end up chasing Koda, trying to offer him a bowl of curry, telling him that, he doesn't have to worry about things. And Muscular would come in as, he punches Deku, but Deku would use his abilities to quickly blitz out of the way, grabbing Koda, as Muscular would punch a crater into the ground and say, "Looks like fun. You're a quick one, aren't you? You won't be able to run away for long. Oh, the boss told me all about your quirk and how strong you are, and I was hoping I could run into you." He would begin stretching and then proceeding to look towards Izuku's direction as he would say, "So let's get it on." Deku, after hearing this, would look up at Muscular with an angered expression on his face, thinking to himself that this villain truly thinks that he's a joke, and he just wants to go head to head with him just for fun. He was about to kill a kid. So Deku would look up at him with this rage in his eyes, and it's at this point that Deku would extend his darkness hand out as he would suck Muscular in, who Muscular would try to use his strength to keep himself, on the ground, but eventually Deku would step up the suction level of the darkness, and Muscular would be flung into the area. Now, when Deku ends up shooting Muscular back out, he's in a frail, weakened state. His muscles are basically gone, and Muscular would just be passed out unconscious. Deku would then grab Koda as he would begin to pretty much run with Koda on his back and take him towards Aizawa, who at this point had just finished taking out Dabi, or at least the Twice clone. Once Deku does this, he proceeds to tell Aizawa that there are villains attacking, and Aizawa would explain to him that he just actually fought one. Deku would then go on to tell Aizawa not to worry about this, and say that he'll go in there and take out some of the villains. Aizawa would look at Deku before saying, "Wait, kid," but Deku would already be long gone. He would rush in, and immediately one of the first villains that he would encounter would be, well, not villains, but one of the first things that he would encounter would be Tokiyami, who at this point was about to kill Dupli Arms. So he would quickly rush in there as he shoots a bunch of light right at the direction of Tokiyami, causing his quirk to calm down, and then after this they would run into the forest where they would find Todoroki and Bakugo going up against the person with the metal teeth quirk. Deku would quickly go on to shoot a couple laser beams at him and kick him down to the ground, taking him out immediately, before they then pretty much end up taking Bakugo and rushing off towards the direction of Aizawa, where more people are there. However, once this actually happens, when they're running towards that direction, the villain, Mr. Compress, would actually end up taking Bakugo because, Bakugo still looks like he has some villain traits, and the villains still want Bakugo. Now, they don't just want him because they don't want him this time because he was freaking out after getting second place, but they want him because, he just seems to have an attitude not fit for a hero. And they want to try to play at Bakugo's heartstrings with that. When this happens, Deku would not be the wiser, and eventually Uraraka would end up pointing out that, where's Bakugo? When Deku would finally realize that, yeah, where is he? He would end up looking up to the sky and see that Mr. Compress was very, very far off. Deku would then begin to pretty much run at full speeds as he would begin chasing Mr. Compress, jumping from tree branch to tree branch Naruto style, as he would get closer and closer to Mr. Compress. Mr. Compress at this point would realize that he kind of just effed up because now he has an angry Deku on his tail, chasing after his once childhood friend, now person who kind of hates him and thinks of him as a rival, but Deku doesn't back. So Mr. Compress would eventually end up getting caught by Deku, who jumps up into the air and shoots laser beams right at him. This is when Mr. Compress would land on the ground before he could have even taken him towards Dabi and the rest of the villains' directions, and it's at this point that Deku would see, Bakugo's pearl on the ground. He would pick it up thinking it's him, but Mr. Compress would reveal that he was in his mouth the whole time, saying that that's the art of misdirection. And from here, he would get towards the villains where he would jump in the portal, and as it would be closing, Deku would use his abilities to pretty much blitz into the portal and come out as he's surrounded by all of the villains that were there at the raid and Shigaraki and Kurogiri. Deku would look at them and he would say, "So, this is your trashy hideout. Honestly, I'm underwhelmed. I thought it was going to be way better than this." But out of nowhere, a dark portal would pretty much reveal itself from the ground, and there would stand One For All, as he would end up teleporting all of the rest of the villains away, as Deku would look at One For All and say, "So, you're the big and bad, aren't you?" As One For All would say, "That's right." Deku at this point would go to throw a kick, as All For One would be sent flying back, and Deku would then say, "Well, I guess I finally get to fulfill my promise to All Might then." Like for part 5.